Alright people, in this week's episode we're gonna talk a bit about Rolex. You know, Rolex is easily the best known brand in the watch industry. It is the most successful brand in the watch industry. And its success has gone that far as that Rolex as a brand name has become a synonym for luxury watches. There's hardly a person in the world that doesn't know what a Rolex watch is and is not associating it with rich people. So plenty of reasons for people to lust after a Rolex watch, but also plenty of reasons for people to absolutely hate the brand. A lot of people are not comfortable with that association of Rolex and rich people. They don't like the mainstream character of the brand. They think it's too much in your face. In fact, many people would rather drop dead than be caught wearing a Rolex. On the other hand, a lot of people say, it's simply too expensive for me. I'm not willing to pay that luxury premium. So whatever your reasons may be for not wanting to wear a Rolex, I got you covered. Today we talk about alternatives to the hottest Rolex watches. My name's David, welcome to Watchcraft. Alright, specifically I want to give you alternatives for 3 models. The Daytona, the Submariner and the Daydate. Easily the most popular models of an already very popular brand. So let's start with the Rolex Daytona. And before we start, I gotta say that Tudor is already disqualified, alright? Because Tudor and Rolex, they are basically the same company. Tudor being the entry-level brand to Rolex. So this is too close of a connection for me. If you don't want to own a Rolex, you're probably not happy with the lesser version in form of a Tudor either. So no Tudor in this comparison, alright? Also, we are not looking for lookalikes. We are looking for watches that have a similar feel of style and functionality, but have their very own character. So there's not going to be Invicta. Any watch that looks too close to the Rolex alternative will not be considered. And speaking of that, I know what you're thinking. The best alternative for Rolex Daytona would be the Zenith Chronomaster Sport, but no way. By itself, great watch, I give you that. But you just gotta admit it looks like a Daytona. And guess what? The Daytona, design-wise, I'm not talking about the movement, design-wise was first. So that makes the Zenith basically a Daytona lookalike. Disqualified, alright? Let's move on. In fact, let me just get to the point. There is such a clear winner in this category of alternatives to the Daytona that we don't even have to consider other models. And the winner, if you have not noticed yet what I'm wearing today, is the Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch. This is it, your perfect alternative to the Daytona. As the Daytona, it's an absolute icon of design. Super recognizable, but with its very own character. With its very own history, by the way, which is much more interesting than the history of the Daytona. This being the first watch to ever worn on the moon. So in no way, shape or form this watch has to hide from a Daytona. In fact, in many aspects, it's even superior. And it's way cheaper. So, alternative to the Rolex Daytona, that's an easy choice. Go with the Moonwatch. Alright, let us move on to the Rolex Submariner. And that is a hard one. That is a really hard one. Because the Submariner is such a unique and great combination between design and functionality. It's got all that you need in a dive watch. It does it perfectly. And it has that style to it that is just impossible to replicate. I'd go so far and call this watch one of the 3 most stylish watches ever created in history. So who's gonna hold a candle to that? Well, firstly, I can tell you it's not the Omega Seamaster Diver 300. Although I think this is a pretty good watch. Neither is it the Planet Ocean. Because in my opinion, both of these models, they would serve much better as alternatives to, let's say, a Sea Dweller or a Deep Sea. They're a bit more utility focused, a bit more chunky, and they mostly lack that stylish element that the Submariner brings to the table. So if we want a more stylish dive watch, we could probably look at the Glashütte Original. Quite a pretty watch in my opinion, very stylish. Same as the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. Also quite nice to look at and both high quality, but they are both significantly more expensive than the Submariner. So you'd basically have a watered down version of the Submariner for much more money. and that's not a good alternative. So that leaves us with only one way to go in such a situation. If you have a super popular watch, a super recognizable watch, with very high quality, and you don't find an alternative that is on the same level of all of these metrics, then the only way to go is super cheap, because the watch being super cheap actually makes it cool again. Take a Casio Vintage or a Seiko SKX. They're not cool because they're level of watchmaking, right? Those are mass product items. Quality-wise, not that great. But they don't pretend to be, and that's the point. They have their own character. And that's why, as an alternative to the Submariner, the only way to go is the brand I already mentioned, Seiko. You can either go with the older SKX or with the newer Seiko 5. They look great. They might not be the highest quality, but they're definitely cool and stylish in their own way. Now let's move on to the king in the lineup, the Rolex Daydate, full gold, of course, very expensive watch, and also the one with the least amount of alternatives out there. First, a watch in gold with gold bracelet. There are actually very few interesting models available. If you would take away the bracelet and replace it with a leather strap, just the watch case in gold, you'd have plenty of options to choose from, plenty of great watches. With the full bracelet though, you're basically down to Patek, which is not affordable, Omega Deville, which just doesn't look good, so you really don't have that many options. So very difficult task here. We are basically trying to put a square peg into a round hole, which makes me think of something. How about instead of round watch, we go square? Check this one out, the Cartier Santos. And you gotta admit, it's a stunner. It's a very, very beautiful watch. And the combination rose gold with the white dial, that would be a suitable alternative for a Daydate. Same as with the Daydate, you got 2 different sizes available. And yeah, not much more to say. That's my pick as a Daydate alternative. Now, one thing to consider though, if you really think about buying one now, go to the store, try it on. I have worn this watch before, and I wouldn't go so far as to call the bracelet uncomfortable, but definitely try it on before you commit. Alright, there you go, my dear Rolex haters. You don't have to wear those awful watches any longer. Now you have alternatives, so enjoy, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.